Hey everybody, welcome. All right. Good to see some familiar faces from recent chats. So nice to see you all. Um, Today we're going to be talking. We're going to be having a chat on what it's really like to be a creative director. So getting into the details, nitty-gritty of what the job is like and what that means. Some of the types of work, that's being done, and also some of the paths to get there. In the meantime, I see there's a couple of return guests here, which is great. I love that. So some of this may be repeat, but in the meantime, please just note that keep yourself on mute. We got a lot of people in the chat today, a lot of people in the room. So if you have any questions, just pop it in the chat. I do love to see faces. So if you have the chance to turn your camera on, does help create an engaging session. But I totally understand if you're, you know, like not in camera mode right now. That's all right. And in the meantime, please just go ahead and pop your location in the chat, and your major, whether you're in school or you're not in school right now. you know, if you already graduated, that's fine. But if you can pop your major and also your your location in the chat, that's great. That helps give us some context for the call. And we'll just give it another 2 minutes as some more people join in before we get started. Scottsdale, Arizona. Hey Darren, thanks for coming back. Also, North Carolina, NC State, awesome, cool. Architecture, cool. UNC Charlotte, business and music in Sonoma State, graphic design, North Carolina, cool. Philosophy and political science, great, cool. And film. Awesome. They're pouring it. Great. Hey, Natalie, how are you? Thanks for representing here. PR major from, hey, Abigail, good to see you again. Great. Cool. That's great. Um, we'll go ahead and get started here. I see one more person coming in, so that's good. We'll basically go ahead and get started because we're now 3 minutes over. So let me just scroll over to the next slide here. So I know that all of you were expecting a chat today with Holly Carlson, and so were we. Unfortunately, she had something come up last minute and was not able to continue forward with it. So luckily, Kevin is able to join us. So for those of you that were here for the chat yesterday on Portfolio Do's and Don'ts with Kevin, you get another full, hour with Kevin, which is great. And but we're going to be diving into some different topics, so we're going to talk more about the job of being um, we're going to talk more about the job of being creative director and what that means, and the types of tasks that are done and how to kind of get in that role. Rather than portfolios about you. So this is more about the job direction and more about the career trajectory. So different type of talk, really interesting. For those of you that weren't here yesterday, I'll go ahead and introduce Kevin. Kevin is an award-winning creative director at Flywheel, which is part of Omnicom Group. Over 10 years of experience working within the industry. He's worked on brands such as Samsung, Audi, FedEx, and Krispy Kreme. He'll go into more details of the amazing brands that he's worked for. And then he's also portfolio and industry coach here at Outbound Initiative. And I'll let him do a proper self intro in a second here. Who am I? I'm the COO of Outbound Initiative, and we're an internship program for creative majors like marketing, design, film, TV, fashion, fine arts. And we've placed over 1,000 interns within the industry through our program. And I think that's important because you're going to be thinking about in this call your career trajectory and how you want to get things started. So knowing a little bit about what the industry looks like and what your potential paths are is really important. And then a little bit of today's event breakdown, Kevin's career journey. We're going to talk about that and talk about what it is to be a CD. Our Bound Initiative, we'll go into that, who we are and how to land internships in the creative industries. And then we'll have most of the session for an open Q&A, at least half of the session for an open Q&A. Cool. And I know some of you are just joined in. I just admitted a few people right now, so I'll just repeat. I know you were here for a session with Holly. Um, who had a last minute cancellation, and Kevin has kindly stepped in, also as a creative director, to talk about his role. So we'll be chatting with Kevin today. Let me stop sharing screen here then, and let's just start off, Kevin, with a intro and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and as I said in the chat, same guy, different discussion. As
Yeah.
yesterday, I promise the our goal today is to provide you with as much value as we possibly can. So especially in that Q&A section, ask those questions. Like, let's get into it, and really dive deep into all those burning things that you want to know. But yeah, my name's Kevin. I'm a creative director at Flywheel. Worked at Tracy Locke under the Omnicom umbrella for 11 years and then transitioned over to Flywheel recently. I've been there about 8 months, but with a lot of the same faces that I was with at Tracy Locke. We're still under this Omnicom umbrella. So currently work on Jack Daniels, Bank of America, Herradura Tequila, Old Forester, which I think is hilarious because my last name is Forster. So especially love that brand. But in general, have worked on a lot of things through the years, and I think that is what has been most exciting as a creative, is that many challenges in different types of brands across different types of industries through my career has kept me energized and engaged. And so that's everything from Samsung to FedEx to Krispy Kreme to Pizza Hut, JBL headphones, actually super fun client. A lot of those small clients sometimes are come with a lot of the more fun projects in general. But yeah, I've just worked on a lot of stuff. I love what I do. I love it so much. It is why I am part of Artbound. It is why I also have a YouTube channel called Open Door Creative with over 150 videos to help people get into this thing, because that is what I am most passionate about, getting people into this industry that I love. And yes, I have an advertising focus, but as creatives and different individuals on this calls with different passion points and goals and things that you particularly want to achieve, hopefully there's a lot of similarities in path and career journey. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for the great intro. And I forgot to mention, so I'll mention it now. As we go through this chat, when you have questions, please put them in the chat. We're gonna spend a lot of time on the questions, and for those of you that have been on these calls before, I do go in order. So when you have questions, please just put them in, and I'll just go down the list and get through as many as we can within the amount of time. So just to start off, Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is a creative director? Like, let's start first, just on the basic. Like, what does a creative director actually do? Yeah.
Yeah, which is a loaded question, right? At every point in my career, up until creative director, there was kind of a very defined set of roles and responsibilities. I think depending on what creative director, depending on what team and what account they're on, their roles are going to change drastically, because a big part of being a CD is to be a gap filler. You are filling the needs of the team in the best way that you can. And because of the experience, because of the leadership, you're able to find those gaps and opportunities. And that sometimes means that you're fully in the work as a CD. Currently, I would say it's a pretty 50-50 split. I've got 1 foot in the making portion and 1 foot in the leading, presenting, client management portion as well. And just strategically thinking about how we're moving the business forward. So there are the CDs out there who don't even touch the programs. Like, that is a thing as well, just depending on the team. And then there are some who are very heavily involved in every step of the process. And I think it's important to give my team space. So I try to be this nice balance, both because we're super busy and slammed. There's a lot of behind the scenes of a creative director that a lot of people don't really know about as well. But I think holistically, ideally, as a creative director, you are the builder. You are building up the team, you are building up the work, and you're ultimately building up the business. And that is kind of your role and responsibility. And how you get there may shift and change and look a little different, but that goal is the same.
Cool. And I think that was a great overview. Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of the when you come into a project? So
Yeah.
obviously, as an agency, somebody's talking to clients and getting clients and selling, to those clients, and then they're
Yep.
onboarded. Uh, at what stage do you get involved? And then can
Yep.
you tell us also outside of actually the creative aspect, and being with the creative team and coming up with concepts. And I'd like to know more about what that actually is. But what are some of the things that you're doing otherwise, and what percentage of your work is creative versus any other component of it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I come in pretty early in the process. As a CD, I'm seeing things a lot earlier than a lot of the juniors. So what typically happens is a project comes in, it's intake. We intake a project through the account team. That account team then kind of aligns and kicks off the strategy team. I am on those calls, so I see what the initial project is as it is being transitioned over to the strategic planning team. Then they are off to the races on coming up with the strategy, right? What is the insight? What are we trying? What problem are we trying to solve? And then they share that strategy. And the creative director is the first line of defense from a creative standpoint of reviewing that brief, reviewing that strategy that we will eventually kick off the entire team on. And the goal is to collaborate, to poke holes, to challenge, to question, and make sure that we have all the information we need once it gets to the creative team to do our part of the job, right? Do we have a solid direction and focus in what we're trying to achieve? And then ultimately, after that, we work together, refine that, get that to a good place, and we kick off the entire team. And I'm there with the team, hearing the brief for the first time and all of those types of things. And then after that call is when, I set up a regroup. If there's any questions, if I need to provide any extra context or direction, I'm there for that. And then ultimately assigning who I think should work on different things based off of a lot of individual growth plans and things where if somebody's trying to get better in a particular area, it is my job to look out for those opportunities for those people. And so I make sure that's a big part of the process too. So we're putting, you're putting together the right pieces that you think are going to really elevate that particular assignment. If it's a heavy lift or something that's really important, you put your top people on it that you trust and super rely on to get it to the finish line. And then as a CD, you are either stepping in and leading by example. So yes, I will throw in ideas, I will throw in designs of my own, but also challenging the team and continuing to give feedback, and push them to be better and make their work better. I love when someone on my team's idea gets picked over mine. I love it. I love it. That means that I'm doing the right things because I'm putting out a product I'm pretty proud of. I would never put out something that I'm like, oh, this is shit. But then ultimately, I was able to help them elevate their product. They worked really hard at it and they got that thing sold in, which takes me to the last part of a CD is really presenting that work effectively. Because it's one thing to make the work, but it's equally important of how you sell that work. Because even the best work, if not sold correctly and given the right story and the right context, a lot of that work dies on the presentation room floor. So really giving it the strategic focus that it deserves and really pumping up the why and not just what we did, but why we did it, I think is really important and compelling for clients to ultimately make a decision. And then it goes with the client. So that's kind of the life cycle of a
Steps
particular
that go
project.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. And then to answer your
Um,
second, oh wait, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry, please go ahead. I forgot I had a second part of my question. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, the split of, being creative versus other things, I'd say currently I'm at a 50-50. It's a little bit more difficult because I'm on multiple teams right now. So I have to be a different CD for different teams. One of my teams is more small, so I have to lean in into the work a lot more currently. We're trying to build that team, get a few new bodies in, which will be really, really helpful. But yeah, currently I'm, 50% concepting, designing, creating, and then 50% I am in meetings. I am in, some of the more, I'm not going to say boring meetings, but the more businessy type of meetings, about the state of the business, scopes and hours and, estimation, giving estimates on like how long projects will take and all those types of things as well. Deck building, all the things that I mentioned about selling that idea. I'm really focused on fine tuning that part. And then as I talked about that cross collaboration across department, I'm doing a lot of that too. working with other teams within the agency, from the 3D team to a team that's a little bit more focused on AI, and just trying to continually look for ways to elevate our overall work.
Cool. Yeah. And Natalie, I'm going to get to your question in a second because I think it's a good next question. But just before that, on that kind of 50% of things that you have to do that's non-creative, what were
Yep.
some of the things that were just the hardest for you to learn or the hardest for you
Sure.
to decide to do? I know everybody's got to do part of their job is the part they don't like, right? But like, what were some of the things that were just like really a struggle for you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the struggle is just how many meetings. Like I was getting to a point where, especially as a junior, as an art director, as a senior art director, as an associate creative director, when you're put on meetings, you accept the invite, you go to the meeting, you're probably looking at still at least having half of your day wide open. I am in meetings some days 7 hours of the day, and 14 different meetings. And so when that happens, there's no time to do the actual work, right? So a lot of the complaint is always like, oh, when am I actually going to do the thing? And so I have been a lot more selective as of recent of what meetings do I need to be in, and then what meetings can I delegate and trust my team to take on without me? And so I think that's been a big, learning for me, and something that I've had to get a lot better at is that delegation piece. I'm so used to having my hands all over the projects, all over every part of the process, all over everything. And I've always trusted my team, but I have to trust them more than ever now because the work feasibly could not get done if I didn't.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure that's particularly challenging as a creative, what you just talked about, because nobody can work straight like 8 hours with a good brain. There's
A
ebbs
hundred
and flows
percent.
in the day. But on a creative work, especially, I
Yeah.
imagine that you need a little padding and a little brain space to be able to have a fresh mind and come up with actually
Yep.
good ideas and have a good perspective for clients, right? So that can make it particularly challenging.
Yep.
Natalie asked, could you expand a bit more? And I'm not going through all the questions yet, but I think that is a good timely one. Could you expand a bit more on who makes up the team that the creative director works with? What's the job title of people under the creative directors or who work with creative directors?
Yeah, no, great question. Just to break it down quite simply, we've got the writers and the designers. Now, those are all different levels. So you got from junior art director, art directors, senior art directors, associate creative directors on the art side. On the writing side, you've got junior copywriters, senior copywriters, ACD writers. And I really challenge my ACD writers too to really think visually as well. My most trusted ACD on my team is a writer background, and I've challenged her through the years, and she is super capable and awesome at giving visual feedback as well. So that is a skill that needs to be learned when you hit that more leadership type of role. Is she challenging things in the same way that I would challenge things as well? Is it strategically sound? Does the design make sense? She's looking for all those design principles too. Is there solid negative space? Is there great hierarchy in the piece? All that type of stuff. So that's pretty much the gist under a CD. So you're looking at those different places. Now there are some straggler specialists as well. So some teams will also have like a particular person who excels at one thing. So I do have a team that has dedicated video people and animation. I do have, there's a 3D person as well, and 3D squad. So there are a couple other specialists under that, but I would say primarily you're looking at your art director and your copywriter counterparts.
Cool. And right now, obviously, there's a lot of, we're not going to get necessarily get deep into an AI discussion, but obviously there's a lot of disruption happening, right?
Totally.
Good and bad, with AI coming in, right? Like there's two sides to that. Um, are copywriters still needed? Like, is this something that
Great question.
that is, still needed, or is the team starting to be like, hey, let's just GPT it? I mean, I know it's not that simple,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's a good question. Absolutely, writers are still needed, because we still have to be the judge and jury of what is good. and not everything that GPT puts out is gold yet. But even if it gets good, I think the goal of a writer today is to be multidimensional more than ever, right? I've been challenging my writers for a long time to like think very strategically, think very conceptually, and think about other components as well. How to inspire the work. As I mentioned that ACD earlier, like she is crushing all those things. Writing is just one part of what she does. I tell her to stop referring to herself as a writer. She's just a creative because she impacts the work in so many different ways, and writing is just one of them. So I think, yes, the roles and responsibility of a writer today in our new landscape does look different. It does have to elevate and accelerate and change. But I would say the same thing goes for designers as well. We have to also grow and elevate and change and adapt to this new tech, which I'm pumped about, for one. I've got I could do the longest spiel ever on this call about how much I think AI is positively impacting our own agency currently with the work we're doing. Allowing us to be more creative than we've ever been before. I wouldn't say it's taken away. I think it's been very additive. So very excited about that component. But I will say, being a CD, it has been tough encouraging the team to have that same mindset and that same view. Because there are a lot of people on a team that you're leading who are discouraged, who are a little bit of a, ostrich with their head in the sand, and don't want to like face it. They're like, oh, it doesn't exist. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. And, it's been relatively challenging. And I think I've broken through to some people. I think some people are still resistant. But I feel like once people get into it, they're like, oh, like, this is kind of cool. This isn't too bad. This isn't as scary as I thought it would be. It's not taking my job. And I think those are the continued discussions that we just need to continue to have, because another real big important aspect of a CD is to be empathetic to your team, is to understand what they're going through, what they're feeling at any given moment, and being able to really understand that each person is going to view their job, their role, their future very differently than the next. And as a CD, we need to continue to look out for everyone and understand where they are at in their own career journeys and how to propel them forward. So,
Yeah, totally. And I understand. I mean, it can be really scary, looking at this
yeah,
technology and also wondering, you know, maybe it adds a little bit to that imposter syndrome of like, oh man, like this stuff is pretty good, right? Like I need to step up my game, right? So, but you started talking about some of the soft skills that are needed to be a CD. Can you tell us what's the toolbox that you need, that you feel you need to be a
yeah,
CD? Hard skills, soft skills,
yeah.
and what makes a good creative director?
Yeah, I think the soft skills are everything. I think, you can be a really baller designer and be an amazing senior graphic designer or senior art director, and you can do that for the rest of your career. I think for a leadership type of role, um, those soft skills are paramount. It's really being, um, you know, very confident in the other people on your team and the confidence in yourself to be able to boost them up and get them to achieve the things that they want. When I knew I was ready for leadership, was honestly, I was a selfish, like looking back, I was a selfish art director. I wanted the cool work. I wanted the cool projects. I wanted the portfolio builders. I wanted the awards. I wanted all those things. Me, 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 me. It was all about me. Um, I got some of those things and I wasn't fulfilled. The moment that I started to mentor and manage some of my team members, help them elevate their skills, reach the things that they wanted, help them get the awards, holy shit, was that way more valuable. And I got so much value out of that particular. There was one situation in particular where somebody on my team, I really pushed them, helped them continue to push their idea. We kept, they did the legwork, but I just gave them the little 10% push that they needed. And ultimately, their stuff really elevated, escalated, they won an Addy. The smile on their face going up to receive that freaking award, it was like the best thing ever. And I think that's important because as junior designers, as art directors, you mentioned imposter syndrome, like that is so rampant, especially early on in your career, that you need those wins. And so if you can help someone get those wins and then gain confidence in who they are as a designer and as a creative, um, that is just an amazing feeling, which also was around the same time that I did the YouTube channel and all the things because I was like, I'm high on this. Like I like elevating other people to get what they want. Like I felt so much more value than I ever felt getting any type of award whatsoever. So I think that was an important distinction and kind of the like ready, set, go, be a leader type of thing that I needed was that a little bit of that mindset shift. It was more about others than myself. And then weirdly enough, that accelerated me way faster when I wasn't focused on me anymore. So it's
Right.
funny how that naturally happens.
Yeah, and I want to pull something out of that for everybody here on the call, which is like, you're still likely, those of you on the call are still a student or a graduate, like, and the piece of this that I think is important for you later down the line, becoming a mentor will be important for you. But right now, the piece of this that's important for you that I pull out of this is that people really like to help and they really like to mentor. Like this is actually a very common thing. Some of the most rewarding work is mentoring others. It's why we love doing these calls. Also, it's just a lot of fun. It feels good, right? And so when you go and ask for help from somebody, or you go and ask for advice from somebody or support, or you look for mentorship, you're doing them a favor, in a lot of ways. Now, the key distinction there is don't, and I talk about this in some of my sessions, with our participants, but make sure they get a return on their investment. Don't let them invest in you and then you just fall flat, in the sense that if you're asking for support, if you're asking for mentorship, give them updates, tell them thank you, tell them how it helped you, like let them know what's going on. That's a return on their investment. And then they're like, oh, I got a return on my investment. I'm going to invest more, right? Same like you
Yeah.
would with something financial. So it's really a pleasure to mentor people. And I think that when you find somebody that's eager and interested and also understands your goals and wants to be aligned with you, lean into it. Like, definitely build that relationship deeply.
Yeah. And
So
what's
again,
interesting, what's
yeah.
just really quick, what's interesting about that too is like especially in the roles themselves. Like I offer like for my team, I offer optional growth plans. You don't have to do it. It's totally optional. You will not be judged. But for those who do, what I find is when I'm investing time in making that growth plan and putting all these things together and showing that, hey, I'm invested in you and your growth, I get so much more out of them on a day to day basis. Like you know, they respond and provide even more value back to the team because we're pushing value on them. So I think that's always an important part of mentorship. And that's what I was lucky enough to have since I started. I still work with my mentor that I started with 11 years ago. I was at another agency 3 years before that. And she's been that for me, that consistent voice of reason, that consistent challenger, that consistent voice. And I think when you have someone like that in your corner, it makes it really hard to leave. And that's what keeps people around too. That's where retention comes from for sure.
Yeah. Cool. And then last question for me before we go for a little break, to talk about us, and then we'll get to all the questions
Yeah.
here. Um, how do you balance leading creatives versus being a creative? I mean, obviously, in a lot of ways, you need to lead a team to their successes, but you're also more senior than them, right? So you might have
Sure.
ideas that are better formulated, or come with more experience. How do you balance
Yeah.
those two things? Yeah.
That's a great question, and that's exactly it. You balance it. I think part of it is leading by example. Like I'm going to put something on the table that I feel like will raise the bar of the team. I want to challenge people, and the best way to challenge people is not just to say I challenge them to do better, but is to make something and say beat it. And that's what my old designer said to me too. He'd be like, beat my thing. Like, I want you to beat this. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna freaking beat it. I'm gonna beat it. And I would work a lot harder and try to achieve that too. But I think the other really important aspect of that is making sure that they have space and their voice is heard. It's one thing to lead and give all the direction. I don't do that. I am not a teller what to do. I am a asker. I want to ask the questions to make you find the answer. I don't want to tell you the answer. And typically, that is where new, unique perspectives that I hadn't thought about come from. And I want to hear that. That's essentially why you hire someone for your team, is you feel like they're going to bring a unique perspective to the table. And that is what we want to hear. We don't. I don't want every piece of work that comes out of our agency to be, Kevin coded, if you will. I want it to
Right.
feel like
Yeah.
it came from the squad. It came from
Yeah.
the collaboration and the holistic team. And yeah, so you just got to let people do their thing and have their voice. Yes, you can challenge it along the way, but ultimately they will find a super solid answer.
Yeah. And how does that, I said it was the last question, but it's not. How does that process actually work when you have a
Yeah,
project brief? Is it that everybody's going back and coming up with an idea and bringing it to the table and seeing what the
yeah,
client likes? Does it go straight to the client, or is it going to somebody within the accounts team or something like that who's saying, no, this doesn't really meet what they were looking
yeah.
for?
That's a great question.
Uh,
So our
what's the
process
process
is
like?
I schedule as soon as we kick off a project, I schedule creative check-in meetings. And those, depending on the project timeline, there could be one, there could be two, but it's generally between when we kick off and between the initial IR is the internal review with the account team and such. And so that CCI, that creative check-in, is where we gut check. That first one may be very work in progress, where I'm like, just come with your ideas. Like, let's see what you got. I just want to see like what you're thinking, how you're thinking about navigating the assignment. If you feel confident and want to jump into the programs and start making, cool. But that's that initial check-in. And at that is when I'm pushing, when I'm giving feedback, when I'm asking questions. And then in the next CCI, things are a little bit more polished and ready to roll. And then there's a little bit of that still. We might pivot a few things. Um, Ultimately, then we also relay it back to the strategy. Are we hitting on all the right asks? Are we doing our thing to where when we hit the IR, the account team and strat team should be nodding because it should be in line with what they kicked us off on. And typically, um, fingers crossed, there's not a ton of changes in those IRs to execute before we go to client.
Cool. Okay, cool. And then sometimes the client is like, no, don't like this idea. Don't like
Yeah,
this
that
after you've done
happens
all that, right?
a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Great. So let me go ahead and just share screen again. Kevin, you can take. And for those of you that have seen this yesterday, you can also take a little break. But I'm just going to go ahead and talk a bit about ABI for just about 10 minutes. So I see a couple of our participants here. Hey, Murat, thanks for joining us, and Natalie and Light. Really appreciate it. Maybe there's some others that I haven't seen in the chat, but nice to see you all. Let's go through it. Outbound Initiative, we're a global internship program for creatives. So our goal is really to help you bridge that gap between what you're learning in university and then getting your career started. There is often a gap between what you've learned in university and what it actually takes to get your foot in the door. And once you get your foot in the door, all that university knowledge, you know, is super handy and comes to you. So those are the things you've trained for. But there's a, a transition period that needs to happen. And this is something that's often a little bit undereducated and is also a challenging time to navigate as a fresh grad or as a student. So a little bit about, who our program is for. So if you see yourself in this, program might be right for you. And it's not an exhaustive list, but if you're a student or you're a recent graduate and you're looking to get started in the creative industries, bingo. We've got, internships in the creative industries, and we're really helping you navigate that initial process. If you're looking for an internship internationally, so you are based in the US and you want to go to Australia or London or Berlin, or you're based in Singapore and you want to go to the US, or Australia and you want to go to the US, that's a great opportunity. And part of the challenge of going internationally is that it's nearly impossible to find an internship internationally without the support of an agency because companies, they just don't know how to navigate that visa process and they don't know how to navigate the legalities of it. And so they're averse to it. They're like, well, we'll just hire somebody locally. We've got enough talent around here. But having an agency to support really makes sure that both sides are fine visa-wise and that you have those opportunities lined up. If you're an international student already in a country, so you're on an F1 visa or a Tier 4 in the UK or a 485 in Australia, and you're looking to do internships during or post studies, there are certain requirements that need to be met and timelines that need to be met, and we can help you with that. And then lastly, if you're looking to do an internship for academic credit, you need to line that up based on your degree within requirements and on a specific timeline. And those are all things that we can do. Now, why can we do that? Because within our program, we offer 100% internship placement guarantee. And so that means that if you don't receive an internship within the timeline and also the strategy and the destinations that we've agreed upon, you get a full program refund. So you can really lean into the fact that we're going to line this up together with you and make sure that you have something solid. Destinations that you can go to for an internship through our program, a lot in the US, so New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, and Austin. And then within Europe, London and Berlin, Melbourne and Sydney in Australia. And then if you're not in any of these cities and you don't want to travel, can't afford to travel, or you're in school at that time, you can do a virtual option. We have a lot of virtual internships, and especially for creatives, it's a great option. So great place to get started if you're feeling like, you know what, I want to get a little more experience in the industry before I decide to go to one of these big cities. Internship types that we offer within the program. Advertising communications. This is a great field both for creatives who want to go more onto like the business side of things and try that out. Even if you're planning to go a creative route, this is a great place to start because you get to see how things operate and work. So, or those that are coming from a business background or English background or marketing, advertising. So you could work within comms, PR, marketing, advertising, event or project management, social media, strategy, content production. Within design, we do things in graphic design, branding, art direction, content creation, UI, UX, web design. Fashion, we have a lot on the fashion business side specifically. So marketing, wholesale PR, editorial, talent management, entertainment and media, if you want to go into TV or film production or post-production or other fields that are related. And then last but not least, fine arts. So if you want to work for an artist or a gallery or an institution, supporting with the various different types of roles, we have a lot of different internships there. So those are the internship types that we offer. And when you come into the program, you're going to be selecting some internship types that are right for you and some backups as well. And then we're going to be working to find an internship for you within your strategy, within your internship strategy. Now, there's a few different program inclusions that I should note. And we'll go through each of these, but you have the ABI Academy, you have 100% guaranteed internship placement, you have our access to our creative network, and you have dedicated support. So the academy is pre-internship, but after you join the program. And for those, I see a couple of people in the chat now who are, I mean, in the call now who are currently in it. So in the academy, you're going to be going through, first of all, a transformation of your profile, making sure that your resume, your portfolio, your interview skills, and also your understanding the recruitment process are all there. And then number two is we're going to be preparing you for the internship itself, making sure that you're ready for the internship. So you don't just get an offer, but you also make it stick, right? You potentially turn that into a job or into connections that become really important in your career. It's a combination of live coaching sessions with people within the industry, such as Kevin, for example. You can see his face here. We've also got portfolio reviews by people working in the industry, resume reviews by recruiters working in the industry. You've got live interview preparation sessions and practice sessions. So a lot within this that is really there to make sure that you have the essentials needed. I do want to say that it's all online and it's built for full-time students. So it's not, shouldn't be overburdensome, but it's there to make sure that you're set up for success. Some of the industry experts and advisors that we work with, if you're in, entertainment, we've got people from Warner Brothers or MTV Paramount, Kevin from Omnicom, Michael from Ralph Lauren, Vanessa, who's a senior recruiter for a creative recruitment agency, and then Jazz, who's a global director of social media at Shutterstock. So this is just to name a few. We've got a long list, and And I think that when you come into the program, you're going to feel a lot of support from us and then also from these experts. Uh, Number two, guaranteed internship placement. So this is something that's really important and is really the bread and butter of what we do is making sure that you've got an internship set up. Could be from 3 to 6 months in duration, part-time or full-time. Could be for credit or for experience, depending up to you. And we work with a lot of company partners around the world. So just making sure to get you placed in an agency or a production, house or a brand or a gallery, for example. One thing to note is that the industry still has a lot of unpaid internships, and so that's something that you should budget for if you're coming to the program. Some people do receive paid internships. Some people receive unpaid internships, but we just want to make sure that you're prepared in that sense. So something that we want to be upfront and transparent about. But a lot of people have turned those internships into jobs post internship. About 60% are getting hired into those internships, either part-time, full-time. So good opportunity for you to utilize this as that first entry point into your career. Some of the company partners that we work with, I'm not going to go through all the details, but just going to flash through, some of these so you can see, just some examples of maybe the types of agencies or types of brands that you might work with in all our different locations. But as I mentioned, we have over 300, so a lot of different options. Third, you'll receive support from our team. So if you're going internationally, that's visa processing, insurance, and housing. We help process that for you, make sure everything's lined up fine. Those are separate fees from our program fee. The actual visa itself, the actual insurance itself, the actual housing itself. But our team will be making sure that everything's lined up. And we've never had a visa denial. So, making sure that you meet the requirements and get it done on time. And then when you land in city, you get in-city orientation and support from our team as well. And then our team is really there to support you all the way through. We're very hands-on. And during the internship as well, making sure that you're doing all right. Check in. We're always a video call away. And sometimes, things come up. Things are difficult sometimes during an internship. Lean into us for support, and we can also even chat with employer when we need to. And then you have access to our community. So network is big. You got to build a good network to drive your career forward, but you don't need a ton of people. You just need a few key people that started from with the right reason, right? So having access to our community and our alum, it's just a great starting point for that. And then we also do events within all of the cities that we operate. Just some examples of some of the alum that we work with, or that have been through the program, so you can see, kind of the caliber of people that you could potentially connect with. We do have a tuition, so if you're doing something domestically, it's 2250, or virtually, and then if you're going internationally, it's 3250, and that includes those components that I mentioned, but it doesn't include the visa, insurance, or housing. And I want you to think about this like an extension of your university. You've paid maybe $100,000 for your university if you're in the US, right? Maybe less, maybe more. And you still have that kind of question mark around, okay, but now what? Now how do I actually get into my career, right? We've priced this around the price of a 3 credit course, and yet you'll be with us for 6 to 9 months throughout the entire program and have a guaranteed outcome, which is that internship. So think about it as an extension of your university and that piece to really kind of like slide you into your career. We do have grants, so up to the full program fee for our virtual or domestic programs, for people that are coming from financial needs-based backgrounds. So that's something that you can apply for on our application page. And we're currently taking applications for fall. So if you're looking to do something in August or September, or for Australian summer, so looking to do something in November, we're taking applications for that. Summer applications, unfortunately, have already closed. It's a little too tight to get your place for May or June, but you can always explore this for next summer, or you can do this in the fall if you're graduated or you have time during your semester. Go to our homepage, fill out the application form. There's no cost to apply. And there's some items that you need to fill in there. Get to an interview. Our team is going to discuss with you strategy and next steps and also talk to you about your own career goals. Receive an application result, so whether or not you've been accepted, and then you get to make a program decision. Only at the program decision stage, when you decide to move forward, is there any deposit required. Otherwise, you can go through this whole process, see if you want to join. You can say, well, actually, this is for me later. You can reapply later. No worries. Just come, fill out an application, check it out, have a chat with our admissions team so you can get a better sense of whether this program is right for you. Yeah, so that's it from my side. Let me just go ahead and put in a chat here our website. Of course, probably if you all are here on the call, you already have it, but you can check out the application form on our webpage and see, and take it from there. There are a couple things required, like your resume, your portfolio. Just put what you got, and we'll chat afterwards. Don't get too caught up on the components of it. Great. And RJ, I know you messaged me privately. How long is a commitment for Outbound Initiative? I think this is relevant to everybody, so I'll just go ahead and answer that. When you join the program, you'll join into a cohort start date. So, for example, if you're looking to do something in the summer, our last cohort was in early March. And then you'll have a month of that profile preparation component before we start outreaching to companies. Then we start outreaching to companies. It can take anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks to receive an offer, depending on the company availability, timeline, your profile competitiveness, etc. Once you receive that offer, we'll start getting you lined up for travel. If it's international, we'll apply for the visa and other components. And then you'll start the internship, which would be 3 to 6 months in duration. So about 3 months prior to the internship with us, 3 to 4 months prior to the internship with us, and then the duration of the internship, you're still supported by us the whole time. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Cool. Let me go ahead and start at the top and go through the questions. So RJ, first question off the top here. So Kevin, did you always want to be a creative director, or did you just end up as one over the course of time?
Oh, great question. All right, let's go way back. So I originally wanted to be an architect. Um, I uh, I was that young kid who went on trips to see Frank Lloyd Wright's buildings and was really inspired. I love design. Had always like sketched as a kid and thought architecture was the main jam. Um, I went to university for architecture freshman year. I had to write an 82-page paper on the concept of a building, and I was not about it anymore. I was like, this isn't exactly what I thought or anticipated. So I switched to psychology, and was like, I'm just very interested of how people think. I want to get in the mindset of people. Um, and then as I started to learn about advertising in general, I was like, oh man, that takes the design aspect from architecture and the human behavior aspect of psychology and kind of like merges it as one, right? It's like we have to understand human behavior to then design against and make decisions and problem solve for clients and brands. So I applied for the Texas Creative Program at UT within the advertising program. And that was, it was all downhill, or not downhill, it was all uphill from there. Yeah, I wanted to be a CD as soon as I entered that program, knowing that that was kind of the end goal. That was the North Star. And I knew that started with design and art direction. And so I started down that path, but that's how I shifted focus into this aspect of the career.
Cool. Yeah, so I saw at least one architecture degree in the chat. So it's interesting that you started
Yeah.
off with that. So Robbie asked, I'm going to, I'm considering going to grad school so I can increase my chances of becoming a creative director. If my bachelor's focus is media arts, film, and marketing, what would you suggest for a grad program focus?
Yeah.
Would a
No,
creative
great
BA
question.
be a good path? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for that path, I mean, a master's in advertising, there's a lot of it depends what university you're going to, and if you're open, there's a lot of creative programs out there across universities for undergrad and overgrad, as well as portfolio schools and things of that nature. But there's a lot of anything from Syracuse to the University of North Texas to UT. There's a lot of creative programs out there to get into to help build that portfolio. Um, and if you are if that's the type of route of education that you feel like you need structurally to get there, I think that's cool and valid and rad. I think you could also, I'm going to say, do it on the side as well if you do have the the self discipline to be able to do so. There's lots of options out there to build your portfolio and to learn the skills. Skillshare being a great place to go to learn the programs and challenge yourself. LinkedIn Learning is also a really great place to do that. And then it's really all about your portfolio. Most employers are not looking at your resume and even looking at what your undergrad was. They're looking at that shiny portfolio, which should represent the work that you want to be doing. And so that is your golden ticket in. That is what you will be judged about. That is what will bring you in for an interview. So I always use my wife as an example here. She did not go to school for design whatsoever. She actually started on the account management side of advertising and made it all the way up to senior account manager. Um, I was like, "You're creative as hell. You're great at design. You're better than me. Like, why aren't you doing this?" And she's like, "I didn't go to school for it." And I'm like, "You what?" So I worked with her. She built up her portfolio from scratch, got a junior design, job, and now she's a creative director at Alani. So she's killing it from the creative side now too. So I mean, I always tell people, like, as you are thinking about, can you do it? Is it too late to pivot? Like, this is the time to taste test, figure out what you like, and there's many ways in which to get there. Artbound being a great bridge, into a particular category that you're interested in. But yeah, it's all about that portfolio. So as long as you, whether that's through grad school or on the side, building that thing up and getting it the best it can be is ultimately going to be what drives you forward to get what you want, and enter the creative space.
Cool. That was a great response. Thank you. Noah asks, is there one internship or job that you feel launched you into your role now as a creative director? What would you suggest to look for as an aspiring creative director?
Yeah, I mean, it's starting early, right? I mean, you don't jump right to creative director. You usually start at like a junior designer or junior art director or art director position. For me personally, that looked a little something like me applying to absolutely everything. I landed an internship at a small agency in Austin called Screamer Co. I was scheduled for 20 hours a week. It was unpaid. So I had to make that work. And I worked 40 plus hours every week. So I worked double what I was supposed to because I knew that experience, and learning and growing alongside these colleagues of mine was really important and valuable. I continue to build my portfolio with real work. For real clients. And what I loved about that small agency and that small shop too was it allowed me to get my hands dirty. I got to kind of work on a little bit of everything. I was presenting to clients like 6 months into being a real employee, at larger agencies. Sometimes you don't get your at bat with clients for a couple of years. So that kind of spearheaded, threw me in the fire, and I kind of got to dabble and do a little bit of everything. And to me, seeing that holistic view of how the agency landscape works, elevated me into knowing what it is that I wanted, but also starting to understand what I needed to do to get there. But the best advice that I'll always give is, a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, I want to be a creative director. Like, how do I do it?" I say, start low and go high, meaning too many times we are in a role and thinking about the next role. And then when you get that role, you think about the next one after that. And it's like, just sit in the role that you're in and master where you're at before you move into the next space. That is typically how you will get there a lot faster. Just be an expert at what you're doing. And I think that is an important lesson that I learned really late. Is I was constantly like, I think I remember as soon as I got my senior art director position, I was like, all right, now I met with my mentor. I'm like, now what do I got to do to get to that ACD spot? Like, what do I have to do? And she's like, well, you have to not think about it. Just get really good at being a senior art director. And I think that's an important lesson to kind of continue to gut check yourself and just be like, I will get there when I'm meant to get there. Everybody's journey is a little different. Everyone's path is a little different. Everybody's time that it takes to get there looks a little bit different. But ultimately, you know, just honing in on your creative craft should be the constant, and that should be the main focus. So that would be my best advice to getting what you want, is to just keep putting the work in, keep doing.
That's really good advice. And I think particularly coming out of university after spending 4 years, you know, or plus 1 or 2 years, depending if you're doing a master's, um, you can feel really anxious to wanting to like be a few steps further than you are. You know, you finish 6 years of schooling or 4 years of schooling, and then you're entering, an unpaid internship or, a minimum wage job, and it can feel like it's below you. But everybody's got to start there, and there's a reason for it is because there's a lot of people who want those roles, and there's also it takes time to build the skill sets that are actually needed outside of just being creative, which you may already be to a high level. You've got a lot of other skills that you got to build to be successful within those roles, and it just takes time, which is why you have to start in kind of a low stakes environment. I do want to also kind of touch upon the internship component because Kevin, you mentioned that you took an unpaid internship and you're able to do it for 40 plus hours. And I understand that for a lot of people on the call that may not be feasible for you, right? Like to do a 40-hour unpaid position. Um, and I know that for many of you it can feel not right, I would say is the best way to put it, to do an unpaid internship after you're ready for entering the workforce. But I think that unpaid internships are actually a great opportunity, even if, they can be challenging for you to undertake. You can always do less time. So you can always do a 15-hour a week internship and work on the side. But I want you to think of it more like an extension of your education rather than unpaid workplace because the company also doesn't know really how you're going to do. It's a short stint. They're investing a lot of time into you, which is why a lot of internships are unpaid. I'm not saying that they should be, but it certainly does keep more opportunities open as a result of it. And then secondly, I want you to think of it like this is, I just paid for university for 4 years and I had to pay every semester, every course, X amount of money. And now I get to actually have an education that I don't have to pay for, right? Which is, that mid stage. Um, I know there's real financial barriers at times. I'm not trying to ignore that. However, those opportunities are good, and you should take them with an open mind if you can. Yeah. Let's move to the next question, Natalie. I'm going to skip yours because we already answered it. Catherine said, I'm currently creative director at my first company and beginning to explore new opportunities. From your perspective, what do agencies look for in a resume and portfolio when hiring for a creative director role?
Yeah, great question. Similar to other things, they want to see the portfolio. What are the projects that you have worked on? What was your role in those projects? So, in a creative director portfolio, it's a little bit more important to kind of put, did you spearhead this thing? Were you a large stakeholder in this project? Did you kind of push this to the finish line? And a lot of those questions can be answered in interview as well. But that portfolio should be a little bit more extensive where like a junior portfolio, you're probably good of like having, about 5 projects in your portfolio. Typically for a CD, we're looking more for like that 12 to 15 range on a project perspective, just because that experience really does equate to, hey, I have a lot of experience working on a huge assortment of projects. So showing that range of experience in your portfolio and the different types of things that you've gotten to do will ultimately be the things that ultimately get you into the door as well. And as it pertains to like answering interview questions and things when you're applying for a CD role, I think the most important thing is to understand your role and how you would fit into the overall team and structure. The best advice I could give, something that I say, or when I hear, I'm like all ears. It sounds good. Is the best creative director still lets the team be the team. They are not here to just change everything and go crazy. Sometimes that is needed. Sometimes you do have to create some structure and organization once you get there. But more so, the role of you as a CD when you're going to those interviews, like, look, I want to make the work 10 to 15% better. And that's going to be through little pushes, but ultimately, I'm going to challenge and try to elevate the work and the business in the best ways that I know how. And I think those are the type of answers that go a long way, is being very team oriented in the way that you're answering questions and not so selfish in how you're answering them. Braggadocious CDs are very real. And in an interview setting, that may seem good, like, oh, I have all this experience. I'm awesome. Like, look at all the things that I've done. But the thing that really resonates with people is how you've been able to build a team, raise the bar of the team, and protect the bar of the team. I think those are the things that are more important.
Interesting. Aliyah said, "What's your favorite?" Which has two questions. So we'll start with the first one. What's the favorite project you've worked on?
Oh, sick. Good question. I've worked on a lot of different things, and I'm a big sucker for packaging. So even things like I made a Tito's locker for a game day thing that it was a project where right from the concept to the execution, it didn't change, which is very rare. Typically, there's a lot of back and forth and revisions between you and the client to get a project to where it goes. But my favorite projects I've probably worked on was a JBL spot. We worked with a gamer named Clicks for some new headphones, and we got to build kind of an underground bunker type of set. Very apocalyptic, but very futuristic at the same time. That's it, that guy right there. And it was cool because we made commercials that ran on Twitch. We got to do full 360 campaign, everything from social to billboards to websites and all the things. But man, building that bunker was super cool, and that shoot day was just really, really fun and exciting. Lots of on the fly choices and decisions that we were making there. And then if you'll actually go back a page, the FedEx campaign also was super, super fun. Right at the top, we shot 3 commercials in a week, which is a really tight timeline to make a bunch of commercials. One of them is not out yet, so that's why it's not on this page. But yeah, we had a great insight for FedEx Office that we really enjoyed. It's that just another day in the office kind of confidence mantra. And we had just complete chaos happen within these offices, and then utilized our actor to bring that to life. And funnily enough, I'm a big reality TV fan, and we ended up hiring somebody who was on Survivor, that guy right there. So set was super, super fun. And you freaking bet that I asked all of the questions and was super, super annoying. But now me and him are super tight. He's super cool, super nice guy. We chat even to this day on Instagram. So it was just a really fun set, really great director that we were working with. And yeah, so those would be my top projects.
It's a great campaign, by the way. I saw it, it clicked like right away, it's so smart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but really cool. Cool. Thank you. Aliyah also asked, how did you enter your first design role, and how did you get started in your current role?
Yeah, first design role was out of that Texas Creative program. I then was like, okay, I need an internship. What I did was essentially made an Excel spreadsheet because nothing's more creative than Excel. And I basically listed a ton of agencies on that spreadsheet, and then kept track of what clients they had, what size agency they were, where they were located, my interest level, and essentially applied to a bunch of places, and then just kept track in that Excel spreadsheet of all of my jobs. Probably around 100 on my spreadsheet. Ultimately, landed 3 interviews out of 100. So my portfolio wasn't like the most shiny, gorgeous, amazing thing at the beginning. But did have those interviews, really felt comfortable and confident with that one at Screamer. So got in the door there, and it was a small shop, only about 7 of us, which was really cool and crazy, as I mentioned earlier, about kind of being thrown in the fire a little bit. But that is how I got my first internship. As I sweated like crazy and was a mess and probably had awful answers. But my portfolio did show promise that I was thinking very conceptually and strategically. It wasn't just about the pretty pictures; it was about the thought behind it. And I think that is ultimately what sold me into that very first one.
Cool. Great. Tika has a few questions here. So first, you mentioned earlier that AI has helped to increase your creativity. In what ways has it helped? What
Oh,
would you
awesome.
suggest to creatives to work with AI in their future careers? Yeah.
Yeah, no, great question. It is the new big tool, but it's not just a fad. It is here to stay. I would equate this moment and this shift, if not more so, to when Illustrator, After Effects, Photoshop hit the scene for the first time. There was a time before those programs where people were cutting out things, they were making ads by hand, they were using Quark Express, they were doing some crazy things. Adobe Suite came around and made things a hell of a lot easier, a hell of a lot more efficient. It was a new tool for art directors and designers to utilize. AI is that for today. It is a new tool to put in your tool belt. So my best advice is to learn which tools you want to pick and choose to put in that tool belt and use as a holistic, basically, skill set plate. Because essentially what I do is I use them all for different things and I use them all together. So I'll go to a chat thing. Claude's been my favorite as of now, as of recent. ChatGPT was before that, but it's me brainstorming. It's like, hey, here's my idea, poke holes in it. Claude will be like, oh, I think you could do this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Well, this doesn't feel like it hits with my consumer quite right. So can you adjust the prompt this way? It will be like, oh, yeah, let me poke some more questions, brainstorms back and forth until we feel pretty confident in a solution. Then I'll come up with a plan of action across a campaign, right? I'm like, okay, we've got our insight, we've got the juice of the campaign. Now let's squeeze that juice. So then I'll ask it to give me an image prompt. I'll say what I kind of want. I bring that over into one of my image generators. Lots of those out there. Nano Banana is really awesome under Gemini. So that's definitely my fave. Midjourney was for a while, but I just don't get good outputs from Midjourney in comparison to the Nano Bananas, the GPTs, image generators as well. So then I'll make something in that. A lot of times I will take that image, bring it back into Photoshop because it's not quite right. I'll make some adjustments. Then I'll actually put that image back into my text generator and say, here was my product. There's still some things I'm not happy with. Can you adjust this, this, and this? Then it gives me a new generator. So you see how I'm using each one, bringing it back into this one to then make a new prompt. Then I use my image as a reference image in my final product, and it's able to give me new outputs. So there's a lot of iterative process that happens in those spaces. And then ultimately, if you then want to move that into a video generator like VO3, you can do that. And so you bring that image over into VO3, you're saying, hey, I wanted to do this, da da da. Then you start to bring that into After Effects. You start to put those scenes together, and now you've made something out of nothing. And so AI just allowed us to be, it's allowed us to be so efficient, and it's really improved our overall selling. Especially like I'm working on like brands like Jack Daniels, where we'll make a liquor display, right? It is a lot longer for me to sketch it all out perfectly than it is for me to sketch the bones, put that sketch into the text editor to give me a good prompt, go into the image generator to actually make that prompt. And now I am showing the client my display, my idea that I sketched really quickly in actual and in-store environment in the very first round.
That's
Fast.
cool.
Like that's
Yeah.
never happened before.
Yeah. So
So,
it's really kind of like a communication tool for you, right?
oh,
Like in a lot of ways. I mean,
100%.
it's more than that, but in that scenario, it's a communication tool because often the clients aren't the creatives. Like they're not in your brain
Yeah,
understanding exactly the vision that you have, right? Like,
correct.
yeah,
A lot of
cool.
time ideas get killed because the client can't visualize it. So
Yeah.
now we can visualize it faster. I can call out certain things about it. I'm like, oh, we talk about the three C's where we need a capture piece, we need a connect piece, we need a commit piece, like in our display. Now I can work on that strategy more of like what things are doing what and why. And now they can see it in the store. And hell, I could even throw in that video editor. Someone walks up, takes a bottle from the display, they can visualize it like they've never been able to visualize it before. And that's
Yeah.
super impactful.
Cool. Yeah, so interesting. It's like I can't visualize interiors for the life of me. Like if I look at a
Sure.
room, so now my wife comes to me with like a Pinterest board and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Like let's
Yeah.
go for it." Like I just can't see
Yeah.
it. I can't my brain doesn't work that way. And I'm sure that happens with a lot of clients also, right, where they just can't understand your vision unless you actually show it to them. Um,
100%.
TK, I'm going to skip your second question just in the interest of time. I want to get to some others here. Light said, are creative director and management roles typically gated for senior experience? If so, are there pathways to these roles that require less of a technical and more of organizational approaches?
Less when it's and I'm going to answer the first part where hopefully there's a response to this part. When you say more technical, do you mean like learning the program skills of a designer? So if you'll put in the chat exactly which one you meant there, but I'm going to answer the first part. Yes, a creative director is a creative director because they have a lot of the experience. A lot of experience is needed to get to that point. There are people who think they are ready to be a CD right off the get. I have known many of those people. um, I can tell you firsthand that those people don't understand completely what that role entails. And that really comes through the trials and the tribulations and the working with the team. Because one thing you don't have yet when you come in, and why you don't go directly to creative director, is managerial experience. And I don't want to underestimate how important that is. Your ability to mentor, a squad and mentor a team and understand that each person has very different goals for their own careers. And when they come to work, they all want very different things. There may be someone who it's just a job. There may be someone who this is their life. They love it. It's part of their lifestyle. There are very different types of creatives. And as a manager, you need to know what levers to pull and what things to pay attention to in each of those particular bodies. And that is just something that takes practice and practice and practice to actually master and understand. And I wouldn't even say master, like, even as a CD, like I tell people all the time, like, don't get it twisted. I am learning things consistently. I do not have all my shit figured out. I can look that way at times for sure. I can, definitely, I know my way around of a lot of different conversations. Does that mean that I still have a ton to learn? Absolutely. And I want to be a student until I retire, right? Especially as AI comes in, this is a whole new challenge. Not only do I have to learn a new skill, I have to teach a team how to use it. I have to inspire a team how to use it. I haven't had to do this part before, right? So there's going to be these consistent challenges that come up at every stage in your career, at every step, that you're just not aware of yet until you get there. And I think that's an important distinction. Did they answer potentially the skill based, the technical skill question?
Like I said, when I say technical, I mean more of the deep experience in the software, for example, being a specialist at video editing or graphic design suite.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it depends which way you go. If you are more of a content focused person, there is a rider way up to a CD. That is a path that you can take. I would say that the design programs are very vastly important, not only so that you can design and lead by example and know what looks good and all of those different things. But you have to be able to teach and help other people accelerate in those spaces as well. That is also an important piece. Like, it's one thing to be like, hey, why don't you just make that look better? And one thing to be like, oh, let's finesse the shadows. Let's like play with the highlights. Let's try a few things and then get in the programs with them to help them navigate and actually do those more technical aspects. I think that's still an important part of leadership. Now, if you're looking to just be kind of creative and get to a more managerial space, I would also look into strategic planning. Strategy is a really cool place where a lot of people who are creative, they go there sometimes if they're not as interested in the design aspect of things. So that's
Mhm.
definitely a separate career path to potentially look into as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Or then there's the account management side, right? Which is like more pure,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, more pure business side of things. I kind of like, I mean, all my original experience was in hospitality. I wanted to be a chef and then front of house and stuff like that. And I like to liken things a lot to that. So but it's if anybody's worked in hospitality, it's really like getting to the level of being a chef, right? Like you have a lot of people who are very talented in culinary or come out of culinary school. And when they start at like a fine dining restaurant, the high end stuff, they might spend like a year just peeling garlic, like literally,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a bit of a test, and it's also you do the grunt work first and you learn, and then eventually you build grit and you build respect for your team, and that happens over time. So it's worth going through the hurdles, and slowing down a little bit. Otherwise you'll find yourself a bit stuck later in your career, um, or feeling frustrated. Yeah. um, cool. We didn't get to all questions. There's a few questions here I wasn't able to get to, but we are out of time. So I just want to thank everybody for your time, for being on the call. Thank you, Kevin, of course, for joining us. I'm going to put a few links here in the chat. So Got my LinkedIn, Kevin's LinkedIn, and then a link to our program. So for the LinkedIn's, please just connect with me, send me a message, shoot me a message if you want. Same for Kevin. We do try to get to all messages. And then for ABI, of course, if you feel the program might be right for you, shoot an application in, talk to our admissions team, see what you feel, and then you can explore from there. But yeah, thanks, Kevin, for your time. I really appreciate it. This was great, and thanks for stepping in as well. And everybody have a wonderful evening and a great day, depending on where you are.
Awesome. Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.